Good old conflict. It's always fun, right? All right, we're going to, last one we just wanted to talk about today is time and energy management. And the reason I say time and energy management is oftentimes we focus on time, but I actually think energy management is more of a key as well, more than just time. Because you guys know, like, certain things take more energy than other things do. Certain things are more draining than other things are. And oftentimes we don't think about that and how that plays into our schedule, how that plays into how we manage and address our time. So one of my favorite passages about this is Ephesians 5:15 through 17. You may be familiar with it. Ephesians 5:15 through 17 says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is." And that phrase, I love that phrase, making the best use of the time. And what that literally means is make the most of the opportunity, recognizing future gain. It kind of has the idea of an investment, like a financial investment. Like here's an opportunity that if I invest money now, I want to seize the moment so that I will get future gains. It's like all the people who in the midst of the coronavirus invested all this money in the stock market because it was very low. They wanted to seize the opportunity of it and recognize potential future gains from that. That's what he's saying here. To make the most of the time, make the best use of the time is to seize the opportunity, to seize the moment that you have. And so going back to what Don said the other day, how many of you guys respond with, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm busy. I'm busy," right? I do that all the time. Here's what I'm going to say. Busyness is good. Busyness is good. You should be busy. Life should be full. If you're just sitting around, God didn't create us to sit around and do nothing. So you should be busy. The problem when we say I'm busy is that we're often saying I'm busy with the wrong things. The question is, are you busy with the right things? And so most of our time, how many of you guys say you struggle a little bit with time management? Time management struggle. So what are some of the struggles you would have with time management? Where do you find yourself?
I think I find it way too easy to be spread out too far, see so many different things that I don't actually commit enough to one thing to make a difference. And so and then I get burnt out because there's too many places.
Feel like you're juggling all this type of stuff and how much I'm going to do here, and it's all over the place. Yeah. Any other struggles with time management?
I'm pretty relational.
Wasted?
I'm pretty relational when I have 5 kids, and so my kids are masters. One of us is a master, I'm not sure which one. If they have a need, I will immediately address those needs and talk to them, and if they need me for an hour, I will, and be able to say, no, right now, I need, this is what's coming. I mean, I won't be pulled in directions with just kids wanting something or asking for things for hours.
Yeah, so your struggle with time management is you may have time to do something, but you're often pulled out of that by all these, other things. And you were saying time wasters are just, the tendency to waste time. It might be unique too because you guys are in a lot of different situations, but kind of the slope time frame of I'm kind of here and I'm working, and then it's now I have all this time, and then I'm here and I'm working, and then I have all this time. So I think it's important for you guys to think through too, what's the rhythm of your life? What's kind of your schedule and your situation, because everyone's is going to be different.
Yeah, I think for me it's been taking a trip around the sun now, being married for the first year, and so it's not just because I can say yes and no to stuff. I feel like on my own I can do a decent job at prioritizing and scheduling, but now you're with somebody else who is the same person as you, and their pacing or what schedule works for them isn't necessarily what your own, and so learning how to together figure out what to say yes to, what to say no to, or how often in advance we need to schedule things, for example.
How much freedom and flexibility you have to just change things up.
Yeah.
One person might love it, the other person might not.
For example.
Yeah. Or like in my case, like I'm a morning person, my wife's a night person. And so like how do we work that out, you know? And she's become more of a morning person and I've become more of a night person. It's kind of, you know, balanced itself. But those are the things that you're gonna have to wrestle with. So I think my underlying premise would be this, that time management is not our problem. Setting priorities is. Most of the time, time management is not our problem. Our problem tends to revolve around priorities, and time management is kind of the outlying thing that we focus on. Like, oh, I can't manage my time. I've got all these things. How do I balance them? And I think what I've done is, I don't know if I've prioritized my life correctly. Because if I operate out of priority, time will tend to fall into that. And so I'm going to just four simple things that might help you, very practical with time. The first one is simply set priorities. Like set priorities. And so that is very crucial to your life stage. So like in Justin's example, Justin's priorities when he was single are going to be slightly different than when he's married, because now he has to have shared priorities. They're not just individual priorities anymore, they're shared priorities. And so, like, if one of my priorities is to get to the gym, but like I never go to the gym because all these other things suck up my time, why is that the case? Like even though I say this is my priority, but yet it's not being prioritized. So how do I then shape what my priorities are in life? Like the same thing. It's like, man, you guys ever said, I just never have time to get in the Word. Well, is it a priority or not? Like, what if you prioritized more than getting in the Word? And like little things will creep into your life if you don't hold fast to what your priorities are and make room for those things.
So I just have a question, because I find this to be a problem. I prioritize something in word, but not necessarily in action. Like how do I change that? Even though I want that to be, is wanting something to be a priority actually making it a priority? I guess that's my question.
Well, I think that's where your assessment has to come in. Of like, I think first and foremost, one of the things I'd encourage you to do, assess what you say is a priority to what is actually a priority in your life. Like as you look, like if you just did like a week schedule, if you look back at your week schedule and you would say, well, these would be the priorities of my life, and then actually looked at your time, I think time and money are so similar. Like if you had to tell me what's a priority in your financial portfolio, and then you looked at your bank statement and see where your money actually went, would it line up? You know, the same would be true with time. Like Don talks about golf. We love golf. And golf is a priority. I will rearrange things and I will make things happen so that I can go golfing. I work very hard to make sure that that's a priority because it's something I love to do. And maybe you guys find that to be true. If you really want to do something, you will find a way to make it happen. Like my wife and I have this thing of like, the last thing I want to do is go golfing. She's like, oh, let's go golfing again, you know? And like, I want her to be happy for me. I want her to like encourage me to go do these things that I love to do. Like, I don't have a lot of hobbies, but this is a key one, and my season to do it is very short.
Especially if you live in Alaska. Like
Yeah.
one day.
It's like you have a week to go golfing.
Golfing day.
So, yeah.
A pastor friend of mine said something awesome. This is like 10 years ago, I still haven't mastered it, but it was so good. He said, the urgent over the important. And especially when, like in my life, I can see it. Like you have these priorities that are the important things, the things that you know God has set forth for you, the things that are going to make you healthier, help you grow. And then the urgent things come in, and you're putting out fires all day. And then before you know it, you went to bed, and all the important things went this way, and all the urgent things are right here. You know, my kid asked me for this, or I had to drive here, or, you know, whatever the situation might be, before you know it, all the important stuff just went away. And, you know, I'm the queen of making a list of priorities, and then before I know it, by the end of the day, I'm like, huh, I don't know what I did today. You know? And I just wonder how many
Because all the urgent comes in, or what might not be urgent, but you interpret
You
as
feel
urgent,
urgent.
yeah,
Exactly.
can creep in and push away the important.
And that stuck with me for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. I try to remember that daily. But
Yeah, that's really good. And oftentimes, you guys, what's going to happen is we will neglect what we don't prioritize. We'll neglect what we don't prioritize, and so really, when you think about your schedule, and like Andrew was talking, I have all these things. I'm trying to balance all these things. If we had to like look at our schedule and stop being so overwhelmed and say, okay, where do I need to start? Like, what do I need to start with, and what can I actually drop? And I'll get to that in a second with one of the other things. So set priorities. Another thing, this has been like a Christian tradition thing that's been talked about is this term rule of life. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that phrase, but this kind of idea of rule of life and setting a rhythm. It's really about a rhythm of life. Some of you guys, I understand people are in a spectrum. Like some people are like way more scheduled, and some people are way more fluid. And there's everyone in the middle of that. But I think if you can develop a rhythm for your life, that is like really helpful. Like if I know some of you maybe have a routine of like, hey, I get up at this time, I make my cup of coffee, I sit down with my Bible. Like this is kind of the rhythm of how I start my day. Like those are good things. And to have a good rhythm, a good rule for what you do. Even maybe how you take your lunch break. Like what do I do like when I take my lunch break? What do I want to accomplish when I'm doing that? And you develop a good rhythm for that and what that looks like. So set priorities. I think you need to assess and kind of see where they line up. That would be the first one. The second thing would be create margin. Create margin. When you hear the word margin, you guys understand what margin means? Anyone?
Microsoft Word.
Microsoft Word. There's a margin in there. Right? Space, yeah. Margin is simply that. You create space. What I found myself doing, and this is more in my rhythm, would be I would have a meeting at 1, a meeting at 2, a meeting at 3, and a meeting at 4. There's like no margin, right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm late. Yeah. You know, I'm texting everyone like, I'll be there in a second. But after a while, you find yourself, and in some sense, I like that because it keeps me moving. But in some sense, there's no margin. And what I've found, especially like it more in my role in like more of a ministry position, I have like if I even build 5 to 10 minutes, I have time to decompress after that first person and pray for the next one. You know, if it's like, okay, I finished up here, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to meet with this person. Okay, God, I've got 5 minutes. Man, maybe I'm thinking about some questions I want to asking instead of general questions, I'm asking great questions. I'm praying that the Spirit would lead me and direct me as I go into this. And now there's a little bit of space that I have, and everything's not jammed on top of each other. And I understand you can't always do that. Like that's an ideal situation. But as I look at my schedule, am I creating some sense of margin? You know, you talk about being at home with all the kids. Like, is there a way, like, okay, when nap time comes or whenever, like, is there a place where I can have a little bit of margin where I can just sit down for a moment and decompress and maybe spend a little bit of time in prayer and just sit on the couch for a moment and refresh myself? And that's what margin really does for us. In terms of a week, that's what a Sabbath is for, honestly. That's what a day off is supposed to do in your life. Like one of the best things that we ever did is, like, I take Friday off. Like Friday is my off day, and my wife and my kids know that, and so that is some great margin for us. Like I can have a really busy 4 days. I can go really hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and my wife will survive through it because she knows Friday's coming, and she knows that's a margin that's in our week that's there to protect us against just running so hard and balance that out. So someone defined margin as the space between our load and our limits. So each one of us has a load that we have to carry, but we all have limits. And so if our load is maxed out to our limits, we have no margin. But what margin does is create that space for us between our load and our limits. in life and with our time. So as you guys are thinking about your lives, as you think about those type of things, it's important to create that margin. Another one would be manage your energy. Manage your energy. Know what gives you energy and what drains you. So I can tell you this. When you guys think of people, there's certain people that like fire you up and like give you energy, and there's certain people that do the opposite. There's certain people that you can spend time with that are very fulfilling and you leave like energized, and there's certain people that you can spend time with and you're just emotionally wiped out. That's not right or wrong, it's just true. And so as you think about even how you spend time with the relationships of people in your life, like think about like who's going to give me energy and who's going to wear me out. And if I have a day full of wearing out people, can I not do that? Like can I insert some energizing people into my day, or things that are more energizing, versus filling a day full of things that just absolutely wipe me out? Like this is very true. Like we try to do this at Off the Wall and even in the church. Like I'm not gonna schedule 3 marriage counseling meetings in one day if I can help it. Because to me, those are pretty draining. Like I am exhausted after trying to, like, because oftentimes they're really messy. And I'm trying to walk them through like all kinds of hurt. And so like grief and counseling and everything, I'm not putting all on the same day if I can help it, because they're just gonna wipe me out. But like if I can throw like another meeting in there that I'm gonna leave, or another situation, another relationship that I'm just gonna be like let's do it, let's take over the world, and then go to one of those, that's gonna be a better management of my energy. And so as you guys are thinking through your situations and your calendars, like what does it look like to manage your energy and think through when you actually interact with certain people, and how those people affect you. And then the last thing I just have is budget time. Budget time. Like as you would budget money, budget your time. Like you have a certain amount of time every week, and how are you going to spend it? So, like one example of this could be like set limits on certain things. Like how many of you guys have like your favorite TV show? Like, you pop on Netflix or whatever it is, and you ever get sucked into a season of something? Happens to the best of us, right? If you don't set a limit, you'll find yourself just going for it, right? So here's a personal example. I have not had a gaming system since college, and when COVID started, I went to Walmart and bought an Xbox. I don't know why I did it. I'm just like, I'm gonna be stuck at home a lot more, and I'm tired of watching shows. Maybe I'll try a gaming system. We'll see what happens, right? And so it's been like my random thing to do. Again, those things aren't bad. You know what I mean? Like watching a show or movies or things like that. They're not bad things. But again, if we're not careful, we can find ourselves wasting a bunch of time. And so like even with the Xbox, I'm not really watching a ton of TV right now because there's not really a lot on. But I'll play my Xbox every once in a while. But I'll set a limit, or I'll have a prerequisite. I can play, but before I do, I prioritize this first. Maybe I have to have a conversation with my wife. Maybe I have to spend some time doing a little bit of reading. Maybe I'm gonna make sure I play with my kids before I do this. And so as I'm budgeting and setting my time, even those things that tend to be wasters or tend to consume my time, are things that I just enjoy, like I'm going to do those, but I'm going to either limit it or prioritize something before it. And what I find myself doing is actually enjoying those things more, or sometimes never getting to them. Like I remember one season of life, my wife and I would say, hey, we're going to talk or read or pray or something before we watch a show on Netflix. And there were some nights where we actually never got to the show on Netflix because we started having a really good conversation and never ended up there. There were some nights we talked for 5 minutes and then watched the show, you know. It just depended on how the night went. And so those are just helpful things when you kind of set a budget, so to speak, for your time and manage that and limit that. That can be really helpful. You guys have any thoughts, any questions?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about priorities, one of the things that came to my mind that helped is also along with that, knowing the importance of. So when you're having these meetings, realizing the importance of them and knowing that if I have no time to check with the Lord, if I'm just going overlapping, I'm not really treating them as important as they really are to the young man or couple, whoever that you're meeting with, or you know, if I'm giving myself 5 minutes for lunch and I just put the house back down or whatever it is, if there's no time, I think the margin sometimes, and like you said, it's not always possible, but the habit of will show that importance I'm giving as well, along with priority.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I was read a book, Eugene Peterson, and this, you're talking about pastors, but I think this would apply to anybody. He said the busy pastor is the lazy pastor. And what he meant, you know, like you said earlier, it's not so much about busy, but like he was defining that as I'm doing too much. And you know, he said what he meant by that was part of when we schedule, just like we schedule meetings, we also have to schedule blocks of time for prayer or blocks of time for, you know, like for Jill and I, it's like we have to schedule tonight, you know, or this coming Friday night, we are scheduling nothing here.
Yeah.
You know, and so that
you have to schedule nothing.
Yeah, and that way, you know, we have to protect an evening or two each week that we're not getting together with other people. We're not doing those things so that we have that margin. But it takes intentionality and knowing what an emergency is and isn't. Every once in a while, there will be the, you know, this family just lost a loved one, and I've got to go. Yeah, I've got, you know, but most of the time, the urgent, it's not actually urgent, and so we have to not only schedule that, but then protect that. You know, and not let any other than a true emergency. You know, it's gotta stay there.
And you gotta know who you are too. Like Don has a lot of requests on his times, even more because he's single. So there's not like the natural thing of someone who's married is like people for some reason are gonna be like, okay, I don't want to intrude as much. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's a natural. Like for me, with having a wife and a couple kids, like people aren't gonna try to get all of my time because they know that there's a spouse and a family that I need to spend time with. And so, but Don being single is like, well, Don's just at home, so like he's got all this time, is what people think. And so there's been times because Don just wants to be available for people that I will literally have to say like, let's schedule this here so that your calendar is full, so that people can't creep into that period of time. And like, so knowing your situation, knowing even the demands on your life, and protecting some of those things, even if it is scheduling nothing. But your schedule's full, even though there's nothing there, but I have nothing on my schedule.
Right.
So I'm booked. And just being okay with that. And sometimes that's really important so you don't get yanked in all kinds of directions.
And I know it's getting long, but I just want to say this. I think it's also really important to understand that God naturally, in perfection, this would be natural to us. Yeah. But in the fallen world, it's not. So we actually start to believe that, oh, if I do all this stuff, I'm really being godly. If I jam pack with, honestly, if you read the scriptures more and more, you'll see that God actually asks you to be still, to rest. Not only to have a Sabbath, but then to be still and know I'm God. And so in the Bible, we are constantly told, look at your schedule and how much time do you actually take for God so that you can be effective for the kingdom. And I don't think we ever do the mathematical equation. Actually resting and sitting with God, if I take that time, He will give me more quality time of effectiveness for the kingdom. But when I don't do that as a disciple, I actually become less effective for the kingdom. Even though I might be doing more things, I'm actually not doing better things for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I've learned.
Yeah. And I think that, again, it ties back to that constant reevaluating your priorities and saying, like, really, like, if my priority is to sit at the feet of Jesus every day, and let that kind of fuel my day, and let Christ fuel my day, like, where is that? Like, is it evident in my life, and how do I make that evident, and how do I put everything else aside? Like, if golf gets in the way, how do I put golf aside? If whatever this interest that I have gets in the way, how do I put that aside so that I make sure that these things are essential, that priorities are actually my priorities, and I try to live them out. And even when you do that, time will come and things will creep in, and you'll have to constantly have to reevaluate that. And that's why I equate it so much to money, because I find it to be true. Like, you can set a budget for money, and then if you don't hold tight to it, or you get a little loose with it, months go by, and then you're like, we're spending, a little bit too much money over here, or like, are we even on budget right now? And you have to go back and have to clean it back up and reevaluate that. And I find it to be very true with time. And so, last thing I just encourage you guys to do, make the most of, like, little opportunities. I heard a pastor one time talking about what he called the driveway prayer. And he said, when I come home, I pull into the driveway, I'm in my truck, and I just take like 30 seconds to a minute. And I say, God, I don't know what that woman in there has dealt with today. I don't know how those kids have been. So help me to walk in there and give me the strength to kind of love them, and to love this person, and to love my kids, and to be the dad that I need to be. 30 seconds to a minute makes all the difference in the world, versus just like, park, boom, out. What's going on in here? It's just that minute or two can totally reorient your mind and your attitude. And so how do you build those little things into your day? Like, I even think, like, margin can be 5 minutes. Margin can be just sitting in your vehicle for an extra 30 minutes. And one other thing I just encourage you, Don says this a lot, this is more for the people who are like super anal about their schedule. Like, this is my time, and it's laid out by life's interruptions are God's opportunities. And so even though you might have this perfectly laid out schedule, there's going to be times when God's going to throw you a curveball, when you're going to get interrupted, when you had something all planned out, but God may be presenting you an opportunity. Don't ignore that, and take advantage of that, because it's right in front of you. I'm kind of like that too. Like, if I had a plan and then, like, God throws me a curveball and wants to mess with my plan, I'm like, but this was my plan, Understand it's good to have a plan and operate out of that plan. The same is true in a budget. Like, we have a budget, but, like, maybe this incredible need comes before you, and you're like, hey, God just really wants us to give to this need, and so I know we haven't budgeted for it, but, like, we're gonna do it. And the same is true with your time. So just want to encourage you guys. This time and energy is a difficult thing to manage, and you're constantly going to have to work at it. But I just encourage you guys, as you're managing relationships and going throughout each and every one of your situations, that you take advantage of it, and just kind of figure out the best way to do that. Cool. That's all I got. Thank you, guys. This has been fun.